Pain, though unwelcome, often acts as the most powerful teacher we encounter. It calls us to pause, reflect, and question the patterns in our lives. When we experience the pain of family trauma, it feels like a betrayal by those who were meant to nurture and protect us. Yet this pain can also be the very force that awakens us to deeper truths about ourselves and the cycles we are meant to break. Understanding pain as a catalyst for growth is not about minimizing its impact, but about transforming its purpose in our lives. Pain is, in many ways, a signal. It points to the areas in our lives that need attention and healing. Within a toxic family dynamic, pain might stem from unkind words, neglect, unrealistic expectations, or cycles of anger and blame. These moments leave marks on our hearts and minds, often shaping how we view ourselves and others. However, the scars of such experiences, though they carry the memory of harm, also tell us where healing must begin. To acknowledge pain is to take the first step toward growth. For many, there is an instinct to suppress or dismiss pain, to carry on as though nothing is wrong. But in doing so, we only bury the very emotions that hold the key to freedom. Pain does not disappear when ignored, it festers. It becomes a quiet yet persistent voice influencing how we think, act, and relate to the world. But when we face it, examine it, and allow ourselves to feel it fully, we begin to reclaim the power it once held over us. In this process, pain transitions from being a tyrant to a teacher. In understanding pain as a teacher, we learn to ask, what is this experience teaching me? This question shifts the focus from victimhood to agency. Pain from toxic family relationships might teach us empathy, how to feel deeply for others, because we have felt deeply ourselves. It might teach us courage, the strength to speak up for ourselves, even when it's difficult. Or it might teach us the value of boundaries, the ability to protect ourselves without compromising our compassion. Growth born from pain does not happen in isolation. It often requires seeking support, whether through trusted friends, mentors, or counselors. The insights of those who have walked similar paths can guide us through our own healing. Moreover, sharing our pain with others who can hold it with care and understanding lessens its weight. This act of vulnerability is not weakness, but a profound form of strength. It signals to ourselves and others that we are ready to face our pain and transform it. Understanding pain as a catalyst for growth also involves shifting our perspective on the challenges we've endured. Rather than viewing them as evidence of our unworthiness, we can see them as opportunities for transformation. The pain of a toxic family environment, while deeply challenging, does not define who we are. It is part of our story, but it is not the whole story. We have the power to rewrite the narrative, to use our experiences as fuel for becoming the people we are meant to be. Growth is not linear, nor is it instant. It is a gradual unfolding, much like the blooming of a flower. There will be days when the weight of pain feels too heavy to bear, but even in those moments, growth is happening. Each small step we take, whether it's setting a boundary, seeking help, or simply allowing ourselves to feel, brings us closer to freedom. Pain, when embraced with courage and intention, becomes the soil from which our resilience and wisdom grow. To view pain as a catalyst for growth is to see it not as the end of a story, but as the beginning of transformation. It is to acknowledge that while we may not have chosen the hurt we've experienced, we can choose how to respond to it. In this choice lies our power, our hope, and our healing. The pain of family trauma, as deep as it may run, is not permanent. It is a chapter, not the entirety of our lives. And within it lies the seed of something beautiful, a future, not defined by the past, but shaped by the strength and wisdom we have gained from it. Recognizing patterns of generational trauma is one of the most pivotal steps in breaking free from its grasp. Trauma, when left unaddressed, often cycles through families, repeating itself in ways that feel almost inevitable. It passes down through unspoken words, learned behaviors, and deeply ingrained emotional responses. Understanding these patterns is not about placing blame, but about shedding light on the shadows of the past so they no longer dictate the future. Generational trauma often hides in plain sight, woven into the fabric of family life so seamlessly that it can seem normal. It might manifest as an inability to express emotions, an overemphasis on perfection, a pattern of controlling behaviors, or repeated instances of neglect or abandonment. These behaviors are not isolated incidents, they are echoes of the past, reverberating through generations. To recognize them requires looking beyond the surface and examining the roots of family dynamics. One way to begin identifying generational trauma is by observing recurring patterns in relationships. Are there cycles of conflict or mistrust that seem to repeat in every generation? Do certain family members struggle with the same challenges, such as addiction, anxiety, or anger? These patterns often indicate unresolved pain that has been passed down, whether through learned behaviors or through the ways trauma can shape the brain and body. By recognizing these patterns, we start to see the bigger picture of how trauma operates within a family system. A critical part of recognizing generational trauma is understanding that it is often unintentional. The pain inflicted is rarely deliberate, but rather a reflection of unhealed wounds. For example, a parent who grew up in a household where emotions were dismissed may unintentionally raise their children in the same emotionally distant environment. They may not know how to offer the support or affection their children need because they themselves were never taught. This realization helps to foster compassion for those who came before us, even as we work to break free from the cycles they unwittingly perpetuated. In addition to emotional patterns, generational trauma can be identified in family narratives and beliefs. What are the stories your family tells about itself? Are there recurring themes of hardship, loss, or survival? These narratives, while often framed as lessons or warnings, can carry the weight of unresolved trauma. They shape how family members view the world and their place within it. For example, a family that has experienced financial instability for generations might instill a deep fear of scarcity, leading to anxiety or controlling behaviors around money. Recognizing these narratives allows us to question their validity and decide whether they serve us or hold us back. Breaking free from generational trauma begins with awareness, but also requires courage and commitment. It is not enough to simply recognize the patterns, we must actively work to disrupt them. This might involve seeking therapy, practicing mindfulness, or developing new communication skills. It often requires setting boundaries, both with ourselves and with others, to protect the space needed for healing. These steps are not easy, but they are necessary to create a new legacy, one that is not defined by the pain of the past. As we work to break these cycles, it is important to remember that healing is not about erasing the past, but about transforming its impact. Generational trauma is part of our history, but it does not have to dictate our future. By recognizing the patterns, we honor the struggles of those who came before us, while refusing to let their pain define us. We take the lessons learned from their experiences and use them to build a healthier, more hopeful foundation for ourselves and the generations to come. Recognizing patterns of generational trauma also opens the door to empathy and connection. When we understand that the behaviors of our family members are often rooted in their own pain, we can approach them with compassion rather than judgment. This does not mean excusing harmful actions, but it does mean acknowledging the humanity behind them. This shift in perspective can foster forgiveness and pave the way for more honest and open relationships, even within the context of a painful history. Ultimately, recognizing generational trauma is an act of liberation. It allows us to step out of the cycles that have bound our families for so long and to create a new story. It is a courageous act, one that requires confronting pain and choosing growth over comfort. But in doing so, we not only heal ourselves, we also offer hope to those who come after us. We become the turning point in our family's history, proving that pain is not permanent and that change is possible. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful and transformative acts in the journey of healing from family trauma. It is not a simple or easy process, nor is it a one-time event. It is an ongoing decision to release the hold that pain, resentment, and anger have over our lives. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting the harm done or excusing the behavior of others. Instead, it is an act of liberation, freeing ourselves from the burden of carrying emotional wounds that hinder our ability to move forward and live fully. Family trauma often leaves deep scars, and the pain can feel like a permanent part of our identity. The actions or neglect of those we trusted most can cut to the core of who we are, leaving feelings of betrayal, rejection, and worthlessness in their wake. In these moments, it is natural to feel anger or bitterness toward those who caused harm. These emotions, while valid, can become chains that bind us to the very experiences we wish to overcome. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks these chains, allowing us to take control of our own healing. To forgive is not to condone. It is not an act of declaring that the harm was acceptable or that we are willing to endure it again. Forgiveness is about reclaiming our emotional and mental space, choosing to no longer let the actions of others dictate our peace. By forgiving, we refuse to be defined by the wounds inflicted upon us. We acknowledge the pain, but also affirm our power to rise above it, to transform it into something that strengthens rather than diminishes us. Forgiveness is a deeply personal process and often begins with a choice to see the humanity in those who caused harm. This does not mean dismissing their actions, but understanding that their behavior may have stemmed from their own pain, fears, or limitations. Many who perpetuate family trauma are themselves victims of the same cycles, caught in patterns they do not know how to break. While this understanding does not excuse their actions, it can help soften the anger and resentment we feel, opening the door to compassion and eventually forgiveness. The process of forgiveness also involves confronting and processing our own emotions. Suppressing anger or hurt only prolongs the healing process. Instead, we must allow ourselves to feel these emotions fully, to acknowledge their presence and their impact. This can be painful, but it is necessary for release. Journaling, therapy, or speaking with trusted friends can be valuable tools for working through these emotions. As we process them, we begin to see that forgiveness is not about erasing the past, but about changing how we carry it into the future. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation, though it sometimes leads to it. In cases where family relationships remain toxic or unsafe, maintaining boundaries is an act of self-care and preservation. Forgiveness can exist even in the absence of restored relationships. It is an internal process, a decision to let go of the anger and resentment that weigh us down, regardless of whether the other person acknowledges their wrongdoing or seeks to make amends. Forgiveness is also an act of grace toward ourselves as much as toward others. Family trauma often leaves us questioning our own worth or choices. Plagued by guilt or shame, forgiving ourselves for any perceived failings is just as important as forgiving those who hurt us. It reminds us that we are human, that healing is a process, and that we are deserving of compassion and understanding, even from ourselves. Finally, forgiveness is a gift to future generations. When we choose to forgive, we break the chains of generational trauma, ensuring that the pain of the past does not continue to define the future. We model resilience, compassion, and strength for those who come after us, showing them that it is possible to rise above pain and create a life filled with peace and love. Forgiveness is not a destination but a journey. It may take time and effort, and there will be days when the weight of the past feels heavier than others. But each step toward forgiveness is a step toward freedom. It is a testament to our strength and our commitment to healing. Through forgiveness, we transform our pain into power, ensuring that the trauma we endured does not have the final word in our lives. Instead, we choose peace, wholeness, and a future unburdened by the wounds of the past. Setting boundaries is an essential act of self-preservation and healing, especially in the context of family trauma. However, for many, this act is accompanied by a profound sense of guilt. The weight of familial expectations, cultural norms, and personal feelings of obligation often make establishing boundaries feel like a betrayal rather than a necessary step toward well-being. Yet, setting boundaries is not about rejecting others, it's about protecting ourselves and creating relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and understanding. Family dynamics, especially within toxic or traumatic environments, often blur the lines of individuality. Roles and responsibilities are imposed rather than chosen, and personal needs are frequently overshadowed by the demands of others. Over time, this erodes a sense of self, leaving individuals feeling drained, unworthy, or resentful. Boundaries serve as a remedy to this, offering clarity where there was once confusion. They define what is acceptable, unacceptable, creating space for self-respect and personal growth. The first step in setting boundaries is recognizing the necessity of doing so. This often requires honest self-reflection. Where do you feel consistently uncomfortable, disrespected, or overwhelmed? Are there recurring situations or interactions that leave you feeling diminished? These feelings are signals that your emotional, mental, or physical limits are being crossed. Recognizing these moments is not an act of selfishness but of self-awareness. It is a declaration that your well-being matters and that it is worth protecting. Once the need for boundaries is identified, the next step is to articulate them clearly. This can be one of the most challenging aspects, particularly within family dynamics where patterns of behavior have been entrenched for years or even decades. Communicating boundaries requires courage and firmness, but it also requires compassion. Statements like, "I need some time to process this before I respond," or "I appreciate your concern, but this is a decision I need to make on my own," assert your limits while maintaining respect for the other person. It is important to remember that boundaries are not demands, they are declarations of what you are and are not willing to accept. One of the most difficult aspects of setting boundaries is dealing with the guilt that often accompanies it. Many people, especially those raised in environments where self-sacrifice was expected, feel as though prioritizing their own needs is selfish or unloving. This guilt can be compounded by the reactions of family members who may resist or reject the boundaries being set. However, it is crucial to understand that guilt is not an accurate measure of wrongdoing. Feeling guilty does not mean you are doing something wrong. It often means you are doing something unfamiliar but necessary. Overcoming guilt involves reframing how we view boundaries. Rather than seeing them as acts of rejection, we can view them as acts of care both for ourselves and for others. Healthy boundaries improve relationships by fostering mutual respect and clear communication. They prevent resentment from building and allow for interactions that are more authentic and less strained. By setting boundaries, we are not pushing others away, we are creating the conditions for healthier, more balanced connections. It is also important to prepare for resistance. Family members who are accustomed to certain dynamics may initially react negatively to the introduction of boundaries. They may push back, test limits, or attempt to guilt you into reverting to old patterns. While these reactions can be painful, they are not reasons to abandon your boundaries. Instead, they are opportunities to reaffirm them, demonstrating your commitment to your well-being. Over time, consistent enforcement of boundaries helps others to adjust and, in many cases, fosters greater respect for your needs. The act of setting boundaries is not just about saying no to others, it is also about saying yes to yourself. It is about carving out space for your own growth, peace, and happiness. This process requires ongoing effort and self-compassion. There will be moments of doubt, and it is natural to feel conflicted. In those moments, remind yourself that you are not responsible for the emotions or reactions of others. Your responsibility is to honor your own needs and values, even when it feels difficult. Setting boundaries is an act of self-love and self-love is not selfish. It is a recognition of your inherent worth and a commitment to treating yourself with the care and respect you deserve. When you set boundaries without guilt, you model this self-respect for others, demonstrating that it is possible to care for oneself while still caring for others. You show that love and boundaries are not opposites but companions, each strengthening the other. In the end, setting boundaries without guilt is a journey of reclaiming your voice and your space. It is a process of learning to honor your own needs while navigating the complexities of relationships. It requires courage, patience, and persistence, but the rewards are profound. By establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries, you create the foundation for a life that is not dictated by guilt or obligation, but guided by respect, authenticity, and freedom. Building new relationships rooted in trust is an essential step for anyone who has experienced family trauma or the betrayal of trust in the past. Trust is the cornerstone of healthy relationships, but for those who have been hurt, it can feel like a fragile, elusive thing. The scars of past experiences can make vulnerability seem risky, leading to walls being built where bridges are needed. Yet the very act of fostering relationships built on trust is what helps heal these wounds, proving that connection can be safe, enriching, and transformative. The journey begins with understanding that trust is not given blindly, it is earned through consistent actions and mutual respect. Many people who carry the weight of broken trust may approach new relationships with caution, and this is entirely valid. It is not about being unreasonably guarded, but about recognizing the need for discernment. Trustworthy relationships are not born overnight. They are cultivated slowly through shared experiences, open communication, and a foundation of mutual understanding. One of the first steps in building trust is self-awareness. Before we can fully trust others, we must examine our own capacity to trust. What fears, doubts, or insecurities do we carry from the past? These emotions often arise from unhealed wounds and can create barriers in new relationships if left unaddressed. Recognizing and naming these fears allows us to approach relationships with clarity. It gives us the opportunity to discern whether a lack of trust is rooted in the present situation or is a reflection of past pain. Equally important is the ability to set clear boundaries from the outset. Healthy relationships thrive when individuals feel respected and safe. Boundaries help establish the framework for this safety, allowing both parties to understand and honor each other's limits. When boundaries are respected, trust grows naturally. Conversely, when boundaries are ignored or dismissed, the foundation of trust is weakened. By articulating our needs and limits early on, we pave the way for relationships that are rooted in honesty and mutual care. Communication is another vital aspect of building trust. Misunderstandings and assumptions can quickly erode trust, especially when unaddressed. Open, honest conversations create an environment where both individuals feel heard and understood. This does not mean that every conversation will be easy. Vulnerability is often accompanied by discomfort. However, it is through these moments of openness that trust deepens. Sharing our thoughts, feelings, and fears invites others to do the same, creating a reciprocal dynamic of connection and understanding. Actions, more than words, are what truly solidify trust. People show their trustworthiness not by what they promise, but by what they consistently do. Reliability, consistency, and accountability are the hallmarks of someone who can be trusted. In the same way, we must also strive to embody these qualities. Trust is a two-way street. If we expect it from others, we must also be willing to offer it. This means keeping our commitments, being honest even when it is difficult, and showing up when it matters. Forgiveness plays a nuanced role in building trust as well. No relationship is perfect, and mistakes will inevitably happen. Trust does not mean expecting perfection, but rather believing in the other person's intentions and their willingness to learn and grow. When trust is broken in small ways, forgiveness can serve as a bridge to repair and rebuild the relationship. This requires discernment, of course, as repeated breaches of trust may indicate a deeper issue that needs to be addressed. True forgiveness and rebuilding occur when both parties are committed to growth and change. Patience is another crucial component of fostering trust. It is tempting to rush into new relationships, especially when seeking to fill a void left by past betrayals or losses. However, trust cannot be hurried. It develops slowly, like a tree taking root and growing strong over time. Rushing the process can lead to overlooked red flags or unmet expectations. Instead, giving relationships the time they need to grow allows trust to develop organically in a way that feels authentic and sustainable. Equally important is the understanding that trust requires risk. There is no guarantee that every relationship will succeed or that trust will never be broken. However, avoiding relationships entirely out of fear only perpetuates isolation and prevents the possibility of connection. The act of trusting is inherently courageous, a choice to believe in the goodness of others despite the uncertainties. It is this courage that opens the door to meaningful, fulfilling relationships. Finally, building trust also involves accepting that not all relationships are meant to last. Some may teach us valuable lessons and then come to an end. This is not a failure, but a natural part of life. What matters is that we approach each relationship with integrity, openness, and a willingness to grow. When trust is at the core of our interactions, even relationships that end can leave behind lessons and memories that contribute to our ongoing healing. In building new relationships rooted in trust, we embrace the possibility of connection and the healing power of love and understanding. It is a process that requires patience, self-awareness, and vulnerability, but the rewards are profound. Through these relationships, we learn that trust is not only possible, but also essential to living a life filled with joy, purpose, and belonging. In choosing to trust, we take a step toward breaking free from the shadows of the past and embracing a brighter, more connected future. Embracing the power of your own story is a profound and liberating act, especially for those who have endured family trauma or other deep personal challenges. It is a declaration that your experiences, no matter how painful or complicated, have meaning and value. Too often, we are conditioned to see our stories through the lens of shame or silence, believing that our struggles must be hidden or that they diminish our worth. Yet, the truth is that our stories, every joy, every sorrow, every moment of triumph and despair, are the very fabric of who we are, and they hold the power to inspire healing and transformation. Your story is unique, shaped by the intricate web of your experiences, choices, and circumstances. No one else in the world has lived your exact journey, and that makes your story inherently valuable. However, recognizing this value can be challenging, particularly when your story includes pain, mistakes, or memories you wish to forget. There is a temptation to bury these parts of yourself, to construct a facade to normalcy that hides the truth of your struggles. But in doing so, you deny yourself the opportunity to embrace your full humanity and the strength that comes from owning your narrative. The act of embracing your story begins with acceptance. This does not mean condoning the harm you have experienced or dismissing the pain you have endured. Rather, it means acknowledging the reality of your journey without judgment. It is about saying, "This is my story. It is not perfect, but it is mine, and I will honor it." Acceptance is a radical act of self-love, one that frees you from the need to conform to external expectations or erase the parts of yourself that feel unworthy. One of the most transformative aspects of embracing your story is the power it has to connect you with others. When you share your experiences authentically, you invite others to do the same. Vulnerability breeds connection, and in those connections, healing begins. You realize that you are not alone in your struggles, that others have faced similar challenges, and that together you can support one another in moving forward. Your story becomes a bridge, breaking down barriers of isolation and fostering a sense of community and understanding. Embracing your story also means recognizing the strength it reveals. Every hardship you have faced, every obstacle you have overcome, is a testament to your resilience. It is easy to focus on the scars left by trauma, but those scars are also symbols of survival and growth. They are proof that, despite everything, you are still here, still capable of learning, loving, and moving forward. When you embrace your story, you reclaim the narrative from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. You are not defined by what has happened to you. You are defined by how you have chosen to rise in its aftermath. Your story also holds the power to inspire and guide others. By sharing your experiences, you offer a roadmap for those who may be navigating similar challenges. You show them that healing is possible, that they are not alone, and that their struggles do not diminish their worth. This is not about presenting yourself as a perfect example, but about being honest and human, showing others that progress is not linear, and that every step forward, no matter how small, is meaningful. To fully embrace your story, it is important to let go of the fear of judgment. This is easier said than done, especially in a world that often stigmatizes vulnerability or labels people based on their experiences. But the truth is, your story is yours to tell, and no one else has the right to define its value or meaning. When you stop seeking validation from others and begin to find validation within yourself, you unlock the freedom to live authentically and unapologetically. Writing, speaking, or reflecting on your story can be a powerful practice in this journey. It allows you to organize your thoughts, explore your emotions, and make sense of your experiences. In the process, you may uncover patterns, lessons, and strengths you hadn't fully recognized before. You may also find that putting your story into words gives you a sense of control over it, transforming it from something that happened to you into something you own and shape. Embracing your story does not mean you will never feel pain or regret again. Healing is a journey, not a destination. And there will be days when the weight of your experiences feels heavier than others. But each time you choose to embrace your story, you take a step toward freedom. You remind yourself that you are more than your past, that your story is still unfolding, and that you have the power to write the next chapters with intention and hope. In the end, your story is a gift not just to yourself but to the world. It is a testament to the complexity of the human experience, a reminder that even in the face of hardship, beauty and growth are possible. By embracing your story, you claim your place in the greater tapestry of life, adding your voice to the chorus of those who have chosen to live authentically, courageously, and fully.